I'm so sorry about all those weird technical difficulties. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about how to approach defining a culture in a coffee-focused business. This one is for Sage. Sage contacted me through the online group that we had that we still have for the Cafe Owners Workshop, and she wanted to hear some information about defining a culture. And there is so much information. I didn't want to sit there and type it. I wanted to put this information out there for everyone. It's better done in a video. So here we go. Defining a culture in a business is important. I'd go so far to say as it is mandatory for any business, especially if you have an intention of surviving long term. Now, the thing that you need to think about is, what is it that you are trying to achieve with your business? And that all starts with, what is the concept of the business? And we spoke about this heavily in the Cafe Owners Workshop that we recently did. But understanding the core concept behind what you're doing and why you're doing it is going to help you learn what it is, or understand and get to the heart of what it is that you're trying to deliver to your customers. And by doing that, you can understand what it is that you need to create behind the counter, behind the scenes in the roastery, or behind the scenes in the warehouse if you're a seller of green coffee, or like Elixir is a bottled beverage company. Understanding what it is that you're trying to deliver to your clients is at the heart of the culture that you're going to create. If you are even a company of one person, and for me in Elixir for a long time, that was what the case was, defining this culture, even if it's just you, or even if it's just you and another person, it is super, super important to be able to know that culture and to live by those standards that you're going to expect from other people from the word go. So, knowing what the concept is, then the next thing to define is your buying and selling philosophy. Now, understanding this is going to go a huge way to knowing what the culture of your company is going to be. Why? Well, because if your buying philosophy is, we just want to buy cheap, we want to buy fast, we don't give a shit how we affect the supply chain, well, you're more likely to be heading in that direction with that's the way that you're going to be treating your staff and looking after your staff. If that's the case, that's going to go a long way to defining your culture. If what you're talking about with regards to your buying and selling philosophy is, I want to make sure I look after the supply chain, I want to buy responsibly sourced coffee, I want to buy coffee from roasters that have relationships with the farms that they buy from, or I want to do the kinds of things, work with bread suppliers and with beverage suppliers and all that kind of thing, milk suppliers that take care of the supply chain. Well, you can't be saying that. Well, you can, but imagine the hypocrisy of telling your customers that you are looking after the supply chain, yet you pay your staff minimum wage, you don't let them take any time off, you try and give them as few shifts as you possibly can, and in general, you don't care about their well-being. That's not the way to define a culture. So consistency is going to go a long way to the next thing that I think is important in deliverability of that culture. If the people who you're having working for you and the people that you're having buying from you start to see consistency in the way that you approach the philosophy of your business en masse, then what they're going to do is they're going to believe the culture that is established in the workplace. If you're sending the messaging out there as your buying philosophy to push your selling philosophy, and what I mean by that is, if your buying philosophy is, we buy responsibly sourced specialty grade coffee, right? And then your customers are talking to your staff and the staff are telling your customers that we hate our jobs, all of that is going to result in, we're having some serious technical difficulties today. All of that is, just want to make sure that this live feed happened correctly. Yes, here we're back now. All of that is going to result in an inconsistency between what your concept and philosophies are and your deliverability and the believability of that culture. Some things to consider when you're defining the culture and approaching how that culture should be established. As the owner, I want you to think about a couple of things. I want you to think about how it is you want you and your employees to feel at work. How do you want your customers to feel when they come in your cafe? How do you want your suppliers to feel when they deliver to you? Whenever I take Elixir to any of my Elixir dealers, I am so proud to be handing over my product to a business that's going to be representing us. And I love that. I put a lot of effort into screening who our Elixir dealers are. I tell my salespeople that we have to be working with businesses that we are proud to back with our product. The other thing is your staff have to be proud to work where you are. Think about what that means. Think about how you want to nurture them in order to want to come to work every day. If you're a boss, you're a ship steerer, as I like to call myself, it is important that you come from the mindset that the people who work for you should want to see you as their mentor. It is important that they are proud to represent you as a business owner through the brand, and that they want to represent themselves through the product that they're offering. You should be selecting people to work for you that are in alignment with the product that you're trying to sell and with the culture that you're trying to establish. What do I mean by that? If you are hiring people who, let me say it a different way. If you are establishing a culture that is based on humility and excellence in the quality of the product that you're serving, and a sense of the product speaks for itself, and we're consummate professionals in what we do. Inviting people into the business that are Insta famous, need to be front and center, are the most important thing in the way that they present themselves and the product. And don't really back up their Insta famousness with killer coffee making skills or killer roasting skills or killer sales skills, then they're not the right people to be bringing into your business, because they're going to disrupt the culture that you are trying to create. And as a business owner, your job is to make sure that you've defined the culture that you're trying to establish, and then invite people into the business that are going to nurture that culture and fit into it. We've had some businesses in the coffee industry where it's known, and I'm going to talk about some cultures that are quite toxic right now. There are some businesses in the coffee industry where it's known that it's a boys' club, or if you go there, you're going to be sexually harassed, or these people don't really care about your well-being. They're just going to work you hard. They're going to work you fast. You get no breaks, and that's it. They're going to pay you under the table. They know that you're undocumented. They are going to essentially manipulate your situation and rip you off for everything that they can, and you shouldn't expect any better than that. They're shitty cultures to be establishing in your workplace, but let's be real, they exist. If you're watching this podcast, you're not the kind of person that wants to establish that kind of a work culture. Some resources that I would encourage you to check out in trying to define what your culture is, and Sage specifically asked for this. I had to think about it, and For me, when I was defining my culture, I first of all defined my life currencies. Now, the life currencies for this business, Elixir, and for Map It Forward, the life currencies in our business are peace of mind, flow, growth, purpose, freedom, connectedness, and clarity. And so I had to find people that were in connection to that. Then I had to think about, well, how do I find resources that help me establish a culture around that, especially if I'm a culture of one person? And the other thing is, what if it's just a small culture? How do I convince people to get on board with what I'm trying to create? And the things that I found most valuable were doing some research. Angela Lee Duckworth does a lot of research around the idea of grit. So I looked at the resources in the behaviors, the qualities of the kinds of people that I thought would fit into my company. And I went and researched those kinds of things. And grit was an important one. I went and found out everything that I could about grit and researched Angela Lee Duckworth's information, and came away from that and thought, well, does this mean I can't hire millennials? Does this mean that I can hire millennials? Because she talks a lot about the relationship between grit and millennials, and tested a few of her things out. I also went and studied the people who were mentors of mine from a distance. So what I would suggest is find some people in or out of the industry that have similar ethoses to what you're trying to create. If you know those people and can get access to them, have a conversation with them. Ask them how they went about establishing the culture that they have. Ask them what challenges they were faced with, and try and find a way to navigate your way around those things, and always listen to that kind of advice. The other thing is reach out to people on social media if they're, if they're from a much, like you think you can't get access to them. It's amazing the people you can't get access to, even if you think that they're a much bigger business than you and that have no time for you. Please reach out to them and just ask them the question, hey, what's the three pieces of advice you'd give me about establishing a culture similar to company XYZ? Or what are the 3 pieces of advice that you'd give me if I wanted to instill grit and passion and professionalism in the work culture that I'm trying to establish? Reach out to those people. Don't just reach out to one. Reach out to as many as you can, and try and get access to the information and the clout that other people have gained through their experience and their wisdom in having opened businesses again and again and again, and established cultures and failed at it and tried so hard and not been able to get there. What are the things that they can advise you in doing that can lengthen the distance between where you are right now and where you're trying to get to? This is not just something that I think you should do with implementing or defining a culture. This is with everything that you do in business. Have conversations with people, invite them into your process, get their advice, even if you don't use it. Get the advice of people who are establishing a completely different culture to what you want, and take that and use the opposite of what they've done. It will help you go so much further. It will help you identify how to weed out the kinds of people who would want to work for a place like that. Okay, I hope for Sage and everybody else who is interested in this, that we've started touching on culture in a way that makes sense and that helps. Please let me know any questions that you may have, either here on YouTube, on iTunes, on Stitcher, or through our social media at iMapItForward, and I will happily answer any questions via the comment sections. Otherwise, have an amazing rest of your day, everyone. Be kind to each other, be kind to yourself, and peace, love, and peanut butter.